Peace, peace. All right. Well, I don't know how many people will be listening and chiming in as this is the first broadcast. So I'm just going to get started. Um, well, as I talked about before in some of the test videos, what I'd like to do is discuss whether or not the conscious community or Black consciousness, as it's often called, is necessary for Black people or whomever, whatever name people want to be referred to as, um, progressing or doing well in the United States. So, one of the things that brings people into consciousness, right? People start off in the church, and most people are given that and have that background. I personally do not. I'm not a Christian. Um, I'm not trying to share Christianity or turn people Christian if they are not. I'm personally not into religion. And we'll get into why as we continue. But one of the things that people are presented with are the idea that the religion that they participate in is a white religion or a slave making religion or a religion that was presented to them as slaves, and for many Africans who were in many cases uh, what would be called animus, Jesus was a foreign concept. For others, they would have been familiarized with Jesus on the continent um, for hundreds, if not thousands, of years. Uh, so we are often told that Jesus is not real. He never existed. It was a fantasy. It was something that was made up in order to enslave people. And the Nation of Islam introduced the concept that there was no actual Jesus. Jesus was, in fact, a slave ship. Uh, I don't believe those things to be true. And what I'd like to do is present some information that may shed some light on the topic. Many people don't know that in 1980, many people don't know that in 1980, there were there was, excuse me, a discovery in Israel in a town called Talbia. And this discovery was a tomb. Um, I know that people like Ray Hagans, uh, just anybody in the conscious community is going to tell you that Jesus never lived, and it was a fantasy, and it was a bunch of different people that the Bible stories were based around, and that's kind of true. But there was a central figure, and that individual's name was Yeshua, and his father's name was Yusuf. And this is a presentation about that archaeological discovery in 1980. And we're going to talk about that afterward. But here we go. So what he's breaking down is there was a construction project in Jerusalem, and as they were breaking the ground, they found this tomb. The remains were transported to the Rockefeller Museum. Hmm. Just want to talk about that real quick. In 1980, there was a discovery of Jesus's tomb, and nobody talked about it. The remains were shipped to the Rockefeller Museum, and no one says anything about this discovery until recently. I mean, when we talk about conspiracies and we always talk about what quote unquote they are hiding from us, we don't, you know, we get a whole bunch of, uh, information that's not really hidden. Some of it's made up. But here we have the discovery of, one of the most popular or famous historical figures in history, and nobody talks about it at all. I don't know, something to think about. Now, notice how we're not just telling you that this is Jesus's tomb. They're showing you. They're showing you. Here's the letters. It's a bunch of commercials on here, so bear with me on that. We got to thug this commercial out, y'all. Here we go. Chapter, let's see what we got here. It says Luke chapter 3, verses 23. We have now Jesus himself was about 30 years old when he began his ministry. He was the son, so it was thought, of Joseph, the son of Heli, the son of Matat, the son of Levi, the son of Melchi, the son of Janai, the son of Joseph, the son of Matthias, the son of Amos, the son of Nahum, the son of Esli, the son of Nagai, the son of Math, the son of Matthias, the son of Simeon, the son of Josek, the son of Joda, the son of Jonan, the son of Resi, the son of Zerubbabel, the son of Shiltiel. I don't know if I said that right. The son of Neri, the son of Melchi, the son of Adi, the son of Kosam, the son of Elmadam, the son of the son of Joshua, the son of Eliezer, the son of Joram, the son of Mattiat, the son of Levi, the son of Shimeon, the son of Judah, the son of Joseph, the son of Jonam, the son of Elikiam, the son of Meliah, the son of Mina, the son of Matata, the son of Nathan, the son of David, the son of Jesse, the son of Obed, the son of Boaz, the son of Salmon, the son of Nashon, the son of Aminadab, son of Ram, son of Hezron, son of Perez, son of Judah, son of Jacob, son of Isaac, son of Abraham, son of Terah, son of Nahor, son of Serug, son of Ray, son of Peleg, son of Eber, son of Shelah, son of Canain, son of Arpachshad, son of Shem, son of Noah, son of Lamech, son of Methuselah, son of Enoch, son of Jared, son of Mahalalel, son of Canaan, son of Enosh, son of Seth, son of Adam, son of God. So the lineage of Jesus has, let's see, we got quite a few Matthews. So what they're saying is if there was a tomb that had just Jesus or Yeshua, Yeshua is a common name in Judea of the time, right? If you had added that to Amara, right, which they find and they they find this tradition where she dies in Jerusalem, where they find this tomb, right? Um, we have these traditions here, right? Now we have a Matthew, and that may cast some doubt. We don't know if there's a Matthew that's Jesus's brother. We don't know Jesus's brother. We don't know a Jesus's brother named Matthew. That's not in a common story, but there is the Gospel of Matthew, right? So we don't want to confuse them. So what they're saying is, look in what the Bible is saying about Jesus's lineage. And when you look at the lineage, what you see is people having the same name over and over again, just like they do now. People are named after each other, named after people in the family. The names stay consistent in the family. So Matthias or Matthew or Messiah or whatever incarnation is consistent with the family. So if he had a brother, it's not implausible that he had a brother named Matthew or Matthias or some derivation of that word. Okay, so Mark chapter 3, verse 3 in the King James Version. Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James, Jose, and of Judah, of Simon? And are not his sisters here with us? Are they not offended at him? And the American, I believe it's the American something version, it says something similar. Is not this the carpenter, son of Mary, brother of James, and of Jose, of Judas, and Simeon? Are not his sisters here with us? And they took offense to him. It's the same in pretty much all of the different versions, and there's a few where he's referred to as Joseph. But Jose or Jose is pretty commonly understood to be Jesus's brother in the Bible. So I would assume that, you know, the people who took exception to this person would at least know the name of his family members. These are the detractors. These are the people who don't necessarily want to um, admit that what they found was Jesus's tomb, for many reasons. Uh, when we start going into whether or not this person was real, you have to think about it like this. There is a lot of organizations, people's paradigm that's kind of rests upon Jesus not really being someone who is real. So that if he wasn't real, then, you know, you can always take their religion with a drop of salt, right? What do you call it? Dash of salt. Um, we don't necessarily have to really look at what parts of the scripture are actually true, what parts are not. There's always a deflection. Well, this is a spiritual thing, right? And this is one of the issues that we have with the conscious community, right? This idea that it's okay, it's spiritual, so it doesn't have to make sense in the real world, right? The we have belief in things that happen that don't happen in the real world, right? And then we can shut down reality in order to hold to this belief, right? But now the question is, when we're talking about Jesus, well, did Jesus even believe anything that you believe about Jesus? Did he, let alone, did he live it? Did he even have the same belief system? But the detractors say that, you know, these names are common names. But The problem, and they're going to get into this, the problem with that is like anything. Anything can be common, but where you find exception is the combination. All right, so they're going to go, and we're going to do a little bit of fast forwarding, but they're going to go, and what's going on is they're trying to now refine this tomb because in 1980 they built an apartment complex over it. So now the archaeologists, 40 some odd years later, are now trying to find this tomb and find more archaeological evidence because it was not taken seriously at the time. So, that's what's going on now. I don't know what's going on with my internet. All right, here we go. All right, so move through this a little bit. So they were able to locate this tomb, right? They were able to find this tomb again, and that's what they went through right there. We don't got to get into this. I don't want to get any copyright strikes or whatever because it's going to sit here for a while, hopefully. But anyway, so one of the major arguments is that it is meaningless that you just found a tomb or ossuary with the name Yeshua, because just like today, Joshua is a common name, and it's been a common name for thousands of years. And in the Hebrew community, it was even more common than it is today in their community that there was someone named Joshua, right? But you have Yusef, and which is another common name, right? So now we bring down the possibilities now, because now we look for a Joshua who is the son of a Joseph, right? Now we also add in more factors. A Joseph married to a Mara. A Joseph married to a Mara who was seen as a prominent figure to some because the way that they treated her tomb and her burial. Um, a Joseph and Mara who had a son named Joshua and a son named Jose, which is not a common name, and a son named Matiah, and a son named they also found a son named James also in this tomb. And then they also find uh, another woman who's not related. Now they also get into um, some other arguments, right? Why is it, and we'll get into this here. I think it's right about here.
The Caiaphas ossuary was found, so it's not as though no famous, you say, well, it couldn't be anybody. No matter what we find, couldn't be anybody important. Why not?
They're talking about Caiaphas. This is another biblical figure who they located. Now, the archaeological community is comfortable saying that the Caiaphas tomb is in fact the Caiaphas from the Bible, but they're not comfortable.
How are you so convinced that this is the Caiaphas? Fine. For 100%. We never know for 100% archaeology.
Now, I want y'all to pay attention to what exactly just happened as in that little exchange. The guy who's detracting the discovery is saying in a contrast to this Caiaphas discovery, which they're comfortable saying that the Joseph in that tomb was Joseph, son of Caiaphas, the man who was supposedly executed Jesus. They're comfortable saying that, right? And then when the other archaeologist responds with, well, if you're, there's other aspects that are exceptional in this discovery, such as Jose, right, which is an uncommon name. And now you have Jose, Joshua, and all these other common names together with a name that's uncommon that's also found in the family. Then as soon as, you got to make a rationalization with that, he just, well, we don't even know if this one is the right one. We never know, right? So I want you to just pay attention to how the archaeological community is, they're not rationally saying that this is not the discovery, right? A rational mind would say, well, this is very compelling, and they're just shutting it down, saying, well, no, 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 it can't be, right? Which is important. If we want to get to the truth, it's important to do that, but you want to be very careful of becoming someone who turns a blind eye to the truth. And that's what it seems, that's what it appears to be happening here. Now, this tomb that we're looking at, I believe, is the Joseph of Caiaphas, son of Cephas tomb, or Caiaphas tomb. And they're talking about how ornate it is, right? And that was one of the reasons why they believe that this was, in fact, the individual in the Bible. But this is the thing, that we do know, at least what we're told about this individual, because I want to get into some of that, whether all of that story is a fact or not, right? But we have this sense of mundane, ordinary existence of Jesus, and it is often reinforced, right? Despite the fact that they talk about all the people that he's related to that were important or exceptional, right? Most of his life, they make note that his father was a carpenter, right? He was simple. Basically, if we saw Jesus living as he did then, today he's a homeless guy walking and wandering around, talking crazy. This is the idea that we get of Jesus, right? Why would his tomb be ornate? Wouldn't it just be simple if this was a poor family, right? Perhaps someone else paid for it. They may not pay for something ornate, right? But what you do have when we're talking about ornamentation, what you do have is the chevron. See if I can find it. Excuse me. Oh, hold up 1 second. Just want to check this out, right? Can you see it? All right. Oops, we went to the website. We can do that. All right, so we have this image, right? This is the image that was over the tomb. So when you have this archaeologist that's saying that we know that it's the tomb of Caiaphas, Joseph, son of Caiaphas, because of the ornate ossuary, right? Well, there was not an ornate ossuary for Jesus or Yeshua, right? This tomb we find, right? But we do have this, and this is exceptional, right? This symbol is believed to be an early Christian symbol, but it's not a common Jewish symbol, right? But you also find this symbol elsewhere. Okay, this is symbolism, right? So, and these are other people who have looked at this Ashura, and there's other Ashuras that we're going to find out that have this symbol. But this is what's going on here, right? So we have an archaeologist that's saying that we know that a tomb is likely the tomb of the individual we're talking about because of the symbolism, right? The fact that somebody took the time out to put this symbol on the tomb, right? So if the money was not expended to give these people ornate ossuaries, perhaps the time or energy was expended to put a symbol on the tomb so that it would be set apart from other tombs. But let's get back into the video.
But the experts do seem 100
All right, we got another ad coming up. Give me a minute.
Trying to find the right song. Over 25 years ago, archaeologists discovered 4 ossuaries linked directly to Jesus and his family. Then, on a 5th ossuary, they uncovered another inscription. The inscription has 2 parts. The second part reads Mara, while the first part is diminutive of Mariam. And although no one had ever seen this name on an ossuary, it was translated as just another version of Mary. Mary, also known as Mara.
All right, so now we're getting into why the Christian church may have been interested in not talking about this discovery here. Pay close attention. Now, this is the other thing that they do, and I think that this archaeological community is very disingenuous in their dissension from this, right? Um, what they're saying is, if it was written in the way that I want it to be written, then I would be compelled to believe that it was in fact the person of Mary Magdalene. But what's there is the name, a Hebrew name written in like a Greek. So it's a Greek and Hebrew name combined, Mariamne, right? It's very unique. So if we're going to talk about Magdala, right, then the question would be, were there Greek people or some Greco-Hebrew people in the city of Magdala in the first century? And we'll continue. All right, real quick. Now, the argument is Mariamne a name that is consistent with the biblical account? So this is what we have from Wikipedia, right at our fingertips for everybody. Mariamne is a name frequently used in the Herodian royal house. In Greek, it is spelled that way. Mariamne by Eusephus. In some editions of this work, the second M is doubled to Mariamne. In later copies of those editions, the spelling was dissimulated to its now common form, Mariamne. In Hebrew, Mariamne is Miriam, as in the biblical name. Mariamne is Hellenized version of the Hebrew, as Koine Greek was a common language in the late Hasmonean era in Judea. For Gnostic readers, Mariamne is recognized as possibly being Mary Magdalene. Francois Bovon, professor of history of religion at Harvard University, has theorized based on his study of the Acts of Philip. This is what the guy is talking about in the video, which describes the apostle Philip as the brother of Mariamne or Mariamne. That Mariamne or Mariamne was actually the name of Mary Magdalene, and Miriam was a common name in the first century Israel. However, not all Mary or Miriams would go by the name Mariamne. Nicknames were often used to distinguish between those with common names. So on this tomb, it says Mariamne, right? Now let's look at Hasmodean, right? Let's go here. Let's go to Hasmodia, right? The Hasmonean dynasty was a ruling dynasty of Judea and surrounding regions during classical antiquity from 140 BCE to 37 BCE. Between circa 140 and circa 116 BCE, the dynasty was ruled Judea semi-autonomously from the Seleucid Empire. Those are Greeks. And from roughly 110 BCE, with the empire disintegrating, Judea gained full independence and expanded into the neighboring regions of Samaria, Galilee, Iturea, Perea, and Idumea. The Hasmonean rulers took the Greek title basileus, king or emperor, and some modern scholars refer to this period as an independent kingdom of Israel. The kingdom was ultimately conquered by the Roman Republic, and the dynasty was displaced by Herod the Great in 37 BCE. So this is the period of time that we're talking about. These tombs were put in the tomb, right? The dynasty was established under the leadership of Simon Dassey. All right, now, one more thing. Let's see where. Let's see about this Magdala. Now, this is Mary of Magdalene, called Mary of Magdala, or simply Magdalene. Magdalene was a woman, so we want to find Magdala. Magdala. Okay. Magdala was an ancient city on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, 3 miles from Tiberias. In the Babylonian Talmud, it is known as Magdala Nunanya. Nunaya, meaning Tower of Fishes, and which, excuse me, in which some historical geographers think may refer to Terechia, literally the place of processing fish. It is believed to be the birthplace of Mary Magdalene. Until 1948, Arab-Israeli war, a small Palestinian village, Arab village, Al-Majdal, stood at the site of ancient Magdala, while nowadays the modern Israeli municipality of Migdal extends to the area. Archaeological excavations on behalf of the Israeli Antiquities Authority conducted in 2006 found that the settlement began during the Hellenistic period between the 2nd and 1st century BCE, the same exact period, all right, and ended during the late Roman period when the Jews were dispersed. Um, Later, excavations in 2009 and 2013 brought perhaps the most important discovery in the site, an ancient synagogue, excuse me, called Migdal Synagogue. It's the oldest synagogue found in Galilee and one of the only synagogues from the period found in the entire country as of the time of the excavation. They also found the Magdala stone, which has 7 branch menorah symbol carved on it, and excuse me. It is the earliest menorah of that period to be discovered outside of Jerusalem. Excuse my fucked up reading. Anyway, so the point being made, right, is if this is in fact Mary Magdalene, again, we're gonna play probabilities again, right? This tomb has the name Mariamne, which is a Cohen Greek name that was popular in the area of Galilee, where the city of Magdala was located. The city of Magdala is also known as Magdalene, or the city where Mary of Magdalene came from. Miriam or Mariamne of Magdalene is the name that is found on this tomb. So, what is the likelihood that this is the same individual? I think it's very probable. But they like to tell us that all that Bible shit is fake and we need to follow all of these other made up doctrines. Let's continue.
Oldest known account of Mary Magdalene's travels. She does not die in France.
Pardon yourself, y'all. Spaced out. Now, get through this commercial real quick. Now, I'm moving through this a little bit faster, but just understand something, right? Let's see, speed this up. But excuse me. Um, they're breaking this down in a way to dispel all doubt. So now they're moving on to DNA, right? And we're not talking about DNA with any modern people or trying to figure out that kind of shit that people argue about. We're talking about a very common form of DNA to find out whether people are genetically related. And what they've done is they've taken the remains of what was in the tomb of Yeshua and what was in the tomb of Mary and May. And what we're trying to figure out is if they are related. Because if they are not related, then why would Mary and May's ossuary be located in the family tomb of Yeshua with his brother um, and his mother? So here are the results.
Expect to find DNA representing two individuals with no familial ties, and that would be an extremely rare discovery in the family.
They're actually at the opening of the tomb from the original tomb. And what's going on is after the discovery in 1980, the opening that the original opening that they found all this in was closed up, and they're opening this up now because it was unsafe for the public, and now they're opening up to make this discovery, whatever. So that's what's happening here. We're gonna move through some of this. Am I talking to myself? No. Yeah.
The opening of the tomb, 26 limestone ossuary surface from a private collection. It bore the inscription, James, son of Joseph, brother.
Now these are other tombs they found. James, son of Joseph.
Now, a lot of people have concluded, experts, the brother of Jesus might have said it. It wouldn't matter. Obviously, it'd be the brother of Jesus. You got a Jesus, a Joseph, James, son of Joseph. If it were from his tomb. Now we're speculating. But the time is right, the name is right. And that, I think, would really make it fairly clear that this is family.
So James's tomb was removed and sold from the original discovery. So this is what the discrepancy is here. But now we have we have four individuals connected to Jesus from the Bible. You have Mariamne, who is, DNA has determined is not related through the mother to this family, this individual. And here's the question: if this is the paternal, if she's related paternally, would she be buried in the same ossuary as the mother, or not carried to her own family? I don't know if that's if adopted family, or that kind of practice was done in ancient Judea. If somebody wants to chime in the comments and let me know, but I don't think that's something that's plausible. So I would think that the woman in the tomb, Mariamne, is someone's wife, and we have these stories of Jesus and Miriam, or Mary of Magdalene, being married, and this gives credence to that. Now we also have Mara, or Mary, as well as James and Jose. Jose being the most distinctive name, along with Mariamne, that is making it very possible that this is actually the individual. Now, of course, nobody was there, and we don't know. But this is as compelling as any archaeological discovery that we've accepted. So here's the question. When you have someone like Ray Hagins put out something like the
If you can show me the grave site of anybody mentioned in the Bible, I thought about Jesus. Well, you ain't gonna find Jesus there because he got up. Okay. Let's do anybody. Anybody. If you can show me, take me to the grave site of one person mentioned in the Bible, I will pay all your living to the day I die. I've been putting that challenge out over the internet, over the world for years, because they never existed. We're talking allegorical people. No. Never existed. See, when everybody repeat after me, say it this way. When you don't have a past, you must create myth to supplement the facts of your existence. The whole Africans did not create Jesus. Europeans created Jesus. Okay? We didn't need to create Jesus. Now I'm gonna tell you, I'm trying to end this. Why do black people need Jesus today? And I'm gonna finish with this. Why do black people need Jesus today? I'm gonna tell you why. Because we've been taught that we're sinners. And we were taught that he paid the price for sin. Got me? So instead of doing ma'at, okay, and listening to the Spirit pricking us in our conscience, and when we do that, which we know we shouldn't, and making it right, we've been taught you don't have to do that no more. Whatever you did wrong is all right. All you got to do is exercise faith in our fabricated Savior, and everything is okay. You've been justified. Justified means you've been declared not guilty of whatever wrong you've done.
Now, you don't gotta get into all this other, but this is the stuff that the conscious community puts out, right? This is usually someone like Ray Hagen's is the introductory that people that were in the church and were in these, and let's be real about it. This person that we just looked at, right? Does any church teach about this person? No. Here's the problem, right? The person that people worship couldn't have had a tomb because they believed that the person walked about a cave and transcended into heaven. And one day this person's going to come back, right? And now the conscious community says, well, because that's impossible, the person didn't even exist at all. It's like Superman, right? And this is the point that I'm making. If we want to liken Jesus to a fictional character, then liken Jesus not to Superman, liken him to someone like Zorro or someone like the Lone Ranger, right? Because they were people who actually existed. And someone took, oh, well, shit. In the case of Zorro, a white person came and took that story, embellished it, and made it into something new, and and made it into a franchise and sold a lot of books, right? So when we talk about Jesus, it's similar, right? So in the case of Zorro, you had someone named Joaquin Murrieta. And people would have described him as a serial killer, but he was romanticized and made into a hero, right? And then became a popular franchise and sold a lot of books and movies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the same thing happened with Jesus. You have the narrative that we get from Jesus that is the basic formulation of Christianity, comes from an individual who never met Jesus. We don't get the gospel of James as told by James, and these gospels weren't even written by, in that century. They're written hundreds of years after Jesus lived, right? This person, Yeshua, lived. But Mr. Hagens or Reverend Hagens or whatever it is, right? Unfortunately, for your Bible challenge, it sounds good to Black people who, A, do not identify with the religion as it stands, who, because of the religion and because of the way that the religion has been framed over the course of, let's say 80, 90 years, it becomes difficult to view religion as, to view, not for myself, religion itself, but to view Christianity as something a viable spiritual system. And why is this? Because people told Jesus wasn't Black, and this is the white man's religion. The white man, as Ray Hagen said, the white man created Christianity, right? And if this white man created Christianity, he did so in order to enslave people. This is the story that we're given, right? And when we want to, Let's see here. This is the image of the person who created most of the narrative that we get about Jesus. This guy. It's gonna go to the damn website. I'm working on it. Hold on. We get a narrative that's told through the eyes of this gentleman. This is a painting that gives us a pretty good depiction, possibly, of Saul or Paul of Tarsus. Okay, and we're not going to get into that, but the point is, the white man didn't create Jesus. Did white people adopt Jesus and then identify with Jesus, therefore making Jesus white? Did the history and the symbolism somehow get removed? Did racism play a part in it? Yes. Did xenophobia play a part in it? Yes. Does our views of consciousness as a result of the history of the perversion of history play a part in our outlook on Christianity and of this individual Jesus? Has it led us into a false perspective of religion, of the world, of spirituality, of morality? I think it has. I think that because uh, people are, most people in the world are given the idea that Jesus, even if you're not Christian, was an important figure. And Christianity has set the moral code for, most of the world, for better in cases and sometimes for worse. We talk about does Christianity or the teachings of Jesus, right? Is Jesus someone who should be equated to slavery? I don't think so. I think that it's dismissive to do that. And because we do that, it leads us into a whole bunch of other nonsensical ways of thinking and adopting nonsensical doctrines to find something that we can belong to. And this is the problem. You don't need to look like the person if we're talking about spirituality. Because here's the reality. As a person living in a place called the United States, who is a descendant of slaves, or who has is a descendant of people who immigrated to the United States who were descendants of slaves or colonized by Europeans and African shores or whatever, what have you. But more specifically, people with a history in the United States, right? It's not the same. You're not going to look anywhere across the Atlantic and find anybody that's just like you. So you can't place yourself in any of that shit if that is what the goal is, or what you need to do in order to say, hey, that works for me. Because that's what most people that accepted any religion did. They didn't say, oh, that guy looks like me, so I need to be following this. They said that system works for me, or that system seems to be working for the other people. Now, in some cases, do people put too much value on the system and not the values of the person? Yes, absolutely. But this is the problem. When we focus on the system and not the values of the person, we end up jumping from system to system, getting the same results and encountering the same kind of people who are all doing the same thing. So, what was, I mean, we got to kind of go into, I'm going to have to go into it since nobody's here. We got time. We're going to break down soon. But let's get into Paul of Tarsus. So I want to talk about how, in my opinion, all this shit is a scam. And we've been building on top of scams, things that aren't true, right? Um, so let's go. Taking a deep breath. It could be said that Paul and his letters are the pivotal enmity between Christianity and Judaism. Why did this man transform himself from a brutal exterminator of Nazarenes to a Nazarene himself? Placing Paul in the context of his situation reveals that he may have been a successful impostor, deflecting a viral sect of Judaism on a collision course with a passive Gentiles. It is no coincidence that Christian sermons overwhelmingly rely on the writings of Paul. While Jesus' teachings were mostly reiterations of Torah principles, it is Paul whom established the clear distinction between Christianity and Judaism. It is not just because his writings make up half of the New Testament, but because his explicit teachings are the foundation of Christian theology. The threat Paul faced. Various sects of Judaism existed around the time of Paul's life, including the Pharisees, the Essenes, the Ebionites, the Sadducees, the Herodians, and the proselytes, etc. They were not necessarily official organizations. However, they were de facto denominations differing by their interpretations of Torah and the aspect of Torah which they emphasized and to what degree. It was not unlike the distinctions of modern day Christians denominations. Paul was a Pharisaic Jew belonging to a sect that was primordial to the modern rabbinic Judaism. Distinctively, the Pharisees had a heavily legalistic view of the Mosaic law, enforcing a myriad of hair-splitting rules which ensured Jews remained strictly adherent to the Torah. It also emphasized the authority of Pharisaic priests, and its leaders were often upper-class, wealthy aristocrats, whom were effectively the Jewish ambassadors to the Roman Empire until the Great Revolt. Paul was at the height of his priesthood and held great authority and respect amongst the Pharisaic brethren. However, circa 30 AD, the notable Jewish man Jesus, Yeshua, Isa, etc., 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 was executed by Roman authorities. Rumors swirled amongst the common Jews that he was a prophet. God had performed miracles through him during his ministry, and that he had been raised from the dead. While the Pharisees should have welcomed a prophet, since one had not come for 400 years, this prophet was particularly hostile to the Pharisaic establishment. While his teachings resembled the Essenes, the man was being exclaimed as to be the promised Messiah, despite the fact that most critical properties of the Messianic age were obviously not upon the Jews. The problem wasn't just heresy, but the numbers were swelling. The Yeshua cult grew rapidly amongst the Jewish community, and they had become known as the Nazarenes. Various aspects of the oral law carried by the Pharisees were being challenged by common Jews whom were filling up the synagogues. Paul had trained his entire life to fight such heresy, and therefore outlawed Nazarene Judaism and viciously condemned and persecuted Nazarenes. While the Nazarenes embraced martyrdom, which neutralized the fear of persecution, a much more severe threat was brewing: the potential mass proselytization of Gentiles into Judaism and carrying with them the Nazarene beliefs. If such teachings could tap into Gentiles and inspire their conversion, Israel would become a nation of Nazarenes, overwhelmed simply by the sheer numbers of converting Gentiles. The solution of Paul. Consider that Paul could not simply continue with this strategy. It would require a complete genocide to wipe out every Gentile convert to the Nazarene Judaism. The only hope of protecting Israel from being overwhelmed by heretics was to divert the Gentiles from Judaism itself and keeping it a separate faith. To do this, Paul needed to convince Gentiles that the law was not only burdensome, but unnecessary. It was the hope of starving off the complete destruction of Pharisaic Judaism. In order to infiltrate the Nazarene movement, Paul would need to fabricate his divinely ordained authority to speak on behalf of Jesus. So it was claimed by Paul that on the road to Damascus, Jesus supposedly appeared to him in a miraculous vision. Paul's next steps were to convince the apostles that Jesus had spoken to him. This is the paradox. Here was a man whom was actively exterminating Nazarenes. Yet, here he was now proclaiming to be converted, that Jesus Christ was the promised Messiah. His, his conversion would have seemed suspicious, but too suspicious to be fake. His conversion was likely making night into day. For Paul to go from killing Nazarenes to calling them brothers, this would have taken a miracle. With a mixed endorsement from apostles and a newfound authority amongst the Nazarenes, Paul began his mission to flood the churches with his testimony of Jesus and the new revelation by his infamous epistles. It was successful, of course. These letters diverted the Nazarene movement away from the synagogues and away from Israel, away from the temple and away from Jerusalem. It formed a new religion of its own, with its own God. The main theme of Paul's writings is that the law is burdensome, a curse. The conversion was unprofitable. He wrote that Gentiles are to remain Gentiles, that all they had to do was believe in Jesus and they would be saved. A scam, a diversion tactic, right? What was Jesus trying to do? Well, we get a sense of that in these letters, right? I mean, in this article, right? the Nazarene movement was taking prominence over the Pharisaical movement, right? And the Pharisees were connected through aristocracy to the Roman overlords. So the Pharisees were key in a hegemony system between the Romans and the Jews. And they were able to dictate law to the Jewish masses through the aristocracy, who were the priests. So you have stories in the Bible of Jesus flipping over tables in the temple. Why? Because the temple was being used to, collect taxes, for the Romans to collect taxes. The priests were collecting taxes for the Romans, right? Not something that was a part of the religion, right? It would be considered heresy. And these are people who are dictating what heresy is, right? So this movement of Yeshua was a common man's movement. So when going back to this whole argument with the ossuary, right? Would Jesus's ossuary look any different from a common man? No. The only thing that may set it apart is the inscription, the name, the sign. Those are the only things that separate it. So the question is, the Jesus of the Bible real? Yes and no. Was Jesus a real person? Yes. And can you find his tomb? Yes. And Mr. Ray Hagen's, I can also locate the tombs of Cephas, Joseph, son of Cephas. His tomb has been discovered. James, who's also in the Bible. Mary, who's also in the Bible. Mary of Magdalene, who's also in the Bible. And the central figure, Jesus Christ, his tomb is in Jerusalem in a section called Talpiot, or in Israel in a section called Talpiot, right outside of Jerusalem. These things exist. Now, were you taught about the teachings of Jesus? Probably not. Most of what you were taught was taught out of the epistles, like most people in going to church. And it was the teachings of Paul that told you not to follow the law, because Jesus was teaching Judaism. He just was not teaching sellout Judaism. So Paul figured, if you can't beat them, join them and divert them. So all of these Jewish converts, all these Gentile converts, the Greeks and the different groups of people who then subsequently became Christians, got a whole different religion. So they no longer became concerned with Judaism. And, here's the thing with Paul. As a result, it made Jews the pariah of the ancient world going into the modern world. That's up until we get the Ottoman Turks, and Moorish Spain. So when we talk about the foundation of most people's conversion into the conscious community was, Jesus ain't your God, and that's all fake, right? Well, here's the thing. Jesus's movement wasn't about being exclusive to a group. You didn't have to be a Hebrew, or Israelite, a Judean, right, to be a Nazarene. You just had to follow Jewish law. Um, as a result of this perversion, what we get is, this breakdown where people talk about how perverted Christianity is. Well, it was perverted because Paul said that it can adopt all of these different traditions of your own faith. You don't have to follow any of this stuff in the Old Testament. It's the Old Testament. So if you want to, so if you're Nordic and you have a tradition of bringing in trees for Thor, well, shit, bring the tree into your house. It's okay, right? And as Christianity, it's fine. But that's not what Jesus taught. Jesus did not teach Christianity. Jesus was a Jew. There is no biblical Jesus versus a Jesus that actually existed. No. There is a fantasy that's created around a historical figure. And a bunch of people have used that historical figure to associate it with other local deities wherever they come from. And then that also has extended to different characters in the Bible that are associated with Mary, and where we get Vadun, and all these other different practices that are not inconsistent, right? It's not like, oh, if you're practicing voodoo or whatever, or obia, or santeria, or any of that other stuff, right, and you're using Christian iconography, it's not like it's not Christian. That's the point of what Paul brought. Just put Jesus on it, and it's Christian. So the question is, Christianity for Black people? Yeah, it's for everybody. So is there an argument that Black people's problem is that they're practicing Christianity, and that they perhaps in a sense that they're not practicing Paul's doctrine in its proper context, right? So if you have adopted whatever you choose to adopt, right, that's fine. But if you want to decide to put Jesus on top of Yoruba, it's still Christianity. If you decide to put Jesus on top of Egyptian iconography, it's still Christianity. And I'll add this, vice versa. If you just took Jesus in your mind and took the white man's head off and put a falcon on top, it's still Christianity. And they're still running the same game that they're running in the church to evoke people's emotions, because that's not what Jesus, we don't have any evidence that Jesus was doing that. That's what Paul did, because that's how you push a lie. It's like when you meet when you meet a girl and you run a game, you're not telling her anything about yourself that's meaningful. You telling her how much you think she pretty, and how all these other girls aren't as pretty as her, and all this other nonsense that's meant to express your emotions, to evoke their emotions. And that's what Paul did. That's what the conscious community does. And that's what anyone who wants to mislead people, either on purpose or by accident, out of ignorance, would do. So the question is any of this real? I mean, we can get into the Jewish faith, because there's a lot of and discrepancies in all of these faiths, right? But if we want to talk about the Abrahamic religions, right, of which we have Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, right? What is the most legitimate? If we're talking about what was the first, what was developed from itself, is Judaism. Christianity was a political move originally. And because of the political move, it actually did two things. There would be no state of Israel. There would be no recognition of people in history um, who were prominent because of the Bible, like let's say Cyrus the Great, um, Ramses, Xerxes, and all these other people. Even when we talk about the Greeks and some of those stories, right? The Bible was a transmitter to the new world of all those old worlds. So by the 19th century and 20th century, when people started to um, excavate these different sites, they were trying to prove whether the Bible was real. And if it weren't for Paul misdirecting a whole bunch of Gentiles into some new bastardized world religion, most of the archaeology that we have wouldn't exist. Slavery may still exist. And when the conscious community judges Christianity, right, uh, we don't talk about that. Who was responsible for abolition? Christians. Slavery was practiced everywhere in the world until Christian nations decided that it was immoral and that they could not reconcile their belief in the Jesus that Paul made up. So they went to war. And in a lot of places still go to war to this day to end the practice. So when we're talking about human trafficking, homie, that's slavery. And we like to take this moral stance, right? That people can be judged, right? Whole groups of people in history can be judged based upon their participation in the institution of slavery. But we forget who solely went to war to end it, because it wasn't animists in Africa. It was not Muslims. It wasn't Hindus. It's Christians. So if we want to give them the slave maker label, then we also got to give them the slave taker label too, don't we? I mean, it's only fair. But I think that's the problem. I think too much of this consciousness is disingenuous and reactionary. And the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was making the world believe it didn't exist. What does that mean? Um, if you want to deflect from something, if you want to hide something that's damaging to people, you hide it in plain sight and make you believe and make you look elsewhere for it. So we do shit like Christians had slaves in America and in Europe because most people in America and Europe were slaves. So we're going to leave Christianity alone and become Muslims. And we're going to ignore the fact that Muslims were slaves, that Muslims made slaves first and continue to make slaves and carry out the practice to this day. So, not to say that if you want to be Muslim, it's wrong. No. If you want to be Muslim, it's fine. If you want to be a slave master, it's wrong. And that's the problem with symbolic language and symbolic talk and making symbolism and just not saying things plain. Right? Stop associating things with other things. Put things in their proper context and judge them based on what they are, not how you feel. And too much of this consciousness is based upon how people feel with no information or very little. So that's my presentation for today. We've been going on about 2 hours and 24 and so such and such. So, hopefully you'll have time to pick up on it. I'll be doing these on Sunday, I believe. So, fuck with me if you enjoyed the content. And like, share, subscribe, and whatnot. Check out the other videos. Some of them are music videos and, whatever, what have you. Peace.